So let me ask you a question. I know I come on here all the time and I'm talking about raising money, money that you can use right now to operate your mission, money that you can use to purchase new equipment, to uh, replace the roof, right? Things that can happen right now. And you can do that through major gifts, you can do that through small gifts, events, grants, all those things. Whenever we talk about fundraising, we're talking about dollars that can be used right now. But I can guarantee that most of you are probably leaving money on the table because you haven't launched or not engaging in a legacy giving program. Well, that's our focus on this episode. Let's huddle up. Hey, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Mark, the Fund Coach. I'm Mark Duncan. It is good to be with you. I am sorry that I did not post an episode last week. I was a little under the weather, and but I'm back and in full force today. I'm excited. I'm really excited to talk with you about this topic. Um, eh, so let's talk about legacy giving. What is it? Let's define it. Legacy giving and planned giving are interchangeable. So if you hear me say planned giving or legacy giving, they're both the same thing. Now, I have a definition that I would like to share with you just so that there's clarity right at the top. Legacy or planned giving is when supporters or donors include your organization in their estate plans. That could be through wills, trusts, life insurance, retirement funds, all of those things above. Planned giving means that they're planning to give later. And legacy giving comes from what actually happens as a result of that gift because they're leaving behind a legacy, a representation of themselves through their generosity with this philanthropic support that comes after they pass away. So that is what legacy giving is. Many times, organizations don't engage in legacy giving because it doesn't get you dollars in the door today. And so you know you need to do it, just like you know you need to establish an endowment. But we don't take the steps to do that because we're looking at what's right in front of us. And I get it. I get it. Many of you who are listening to this podcast, watching this podcast, know exactly what I'm talking about. You're worried about whether or not you're going to be able to secure the funds that you need by the end of this month. How much money do you have in reserves so that you can go from month to month? Some of you may even be struggling to make payroll for your staff. These are real problems that organizations exist, yet you continue to do the good work that you do for the people that you serve. Well, here is why legacy giving is so important, and it's so important right now. If you begin the process of launching a legacy giving program, it will pay off. It may not pay off today, and you're probably doing work that your successors will reap the benefits of. And that's okay because it's not about us as leaders, it's about the people that we serve. Organizations live long beyond their leaders. And so it is up to the leader who is currently in charge to make sure that they are setting up the organization for success. So that's the first reason why you want to establish a legacy giving program. You want to ensure the organization's longevity. You see, with a solid legacy giving program, you will ensure that the organization will continue to receive funds that will be used for the longevity of the organization. Maybe it is what you'll use to, there's a variety of things you could use legacy giving funds for. I'm going to get into that in a moment. But the longevity of the organization is primarily one of the main reasons why you want to engage in this. It also amplifies the impact that the organization has, right? Because you have more resources. We have resources that you're getting now, the fundraising that you're doing now, and the large gifts that can come in later. And I'll talk about what a good strategy is in terms of how you use those funds. There's two ways that can happen. Let me take that back. There's one thing that needs to be considered, and then there are other options, and I'll get into that in a minute. Relationship fundraising is absolutely critical when it comes to establishing and sustaining a legacy giving program. Because many of the same things that I talk about on this podcast, as it relates to building meaningful relationships, making the case, making the ask, and closing the deal, all of that applies when it comes to legacy giving as well. There are just some nuances to it. But at the end of the day, this is about relationships. It's about the person trusting you as a leader, trusting in your ability to continue to serve the people that you serve. And they want to attach their name, their legacy to that. So critical. It reduces the reliance on unpredictable funding. Again, that depends on how you use it. I will talk about that in a moment. But when you have these dollars coming in, and you cannot control when they come in, that's pretty obvious. But if you engage in this program and you get it started, you will be pleasantly surprised at how much growth your organization will experience as a result. So let's talk about how these dollars can be used. And then I'm going to get into why it's so important to do this right now. You can create a policy that will help you strategically grow your reserves. For example, I've worked at organizations, and I advise this to the people that I work with, that if you should receive a planned gift, and a lot of times we receive a planned gift without knowing it's coming. We didn't know that this donor put the organization in their will. And all of a sudden you get a letter from the executor of the estate informing you that these funds are coming, that your organization was in their estate. Now you get this letter, and now you wait until it comes. But in that letter, it's going to tell you if the donor designated those dollars for something specific. Maybe it was for a program. Maybe it is for facilities. Maybe it's for annual operations. They can make that decision. And if they're not guided by you, the leader, you may be in a situation where those funds are coming in and they may be difficult to spend because it may be for something that no longer exists. A program, or so hopefully there's language in the letter that says if this program ceases to exist, then you may use these dollars for this or this. Like, that gives you a little bit of wiggle room there. But I suggest that if you get a planned gift, expected or not expected, that you establish a policy that any planned gift that comes into the organization goes into an endowment. Now, why an endowment as opposed to just unrestricted funds that you can use right away? This actually now takes the legacy gift that, by the way, you did not budget for. You can't budget for legacy gifts. You didn't plan for it, or maybe you knew about it. But at the end of the day, those dollars are coming in. You're not going to get that gift again. This is why it's so important to take that money and establish, I would say, establish an endowment, an unrestricted endowment, and that any funds that come in from a legacy gift go into that endowment. And now that endowment, the income from that endowment can be used to support the organization in any way you see fit. It can be a decision that's made by the board or a decision that is designated by the board to the executive director. You can use these funds as necessary, whether it's to fund a shortfall in the annual budget, to purchase something new, to engage in new programming. But imagine if you took all of your legacy gifts, put them into an endowment, watch that endowment grow, perhaps by the millions, and your spending policy on that endowment allows you to spend 4.5 to 5% of the corpus. It's probably going to earn more than that. It will likely earn 8, 9, maybe 10%. So now what's happening is you're spending 4.5, 5% of that, half of what it's earning. The other half rolls into the corpus, rolls right into the principal. And so now you've got organic growth. Now, that's not the only way to fund the endowment. You can fund the endowment through other gifts, through other major gifts, but to have a policy in place for any legacy gifts that come in, that are cash, can go into the endowment. So I highly recommend that, because if you get a $500,000 planned gift, and it's almost like winning the lottery, right? If you had $1 million and you won in the lottery, and I asked you what you would do with those dollars, it would be very telling to hear what your plans would be. Just think about that for a minute. For me, if I got $1 million in a lottery, I'm not going to go out and purchase new stuff. That won't be me. And maybe it's because I'm beyond a certain age where those things are not as important. So I'm going to figure out how I can make that $1 million grow. Or how can I do something that is going to reduce my day to day expenses? Now, as we look at legacy giving, I want to talk about the types of legacy gifts that are out there. I mentioned at the top of this, there are things like wills and straight bequests, and insurance, all those things. Um, a will is simply what it sounds like. Somebody puts a certain amount or a percentage of their estate in their will to be given to the organization. That's a straight bequest. It's revocable. That means that they can change their mind at any time while they're alive as to whether or not you get those funds. There are other vehicles like charitable gift annuities and charitable remainder trusts. These are more complicated vehicles that provide income to the donor and or income to the organization while the donor is alive, and when the donor passes away, then the proceeds go to the organization, or the reverse of that is the what's remaining goes to the family. So that is another way to another vehicle. The other is a life estate agreement. Life estate agreement. Um, if you have a donor who has property that they would like to donate to the organization, well, they can create a life estate agreement that says upon their passing, this property is given to the organization. And hopefully it's unrestricted. So then what you would do is you would take that piece of real estate, you would liquidate it through a sale, and then you would take the proceeds, put it in the endowment, or use it however the donor has designated. And then finally, there's something as simple as life insurance. These are just a few. So you can have a donor who gets a life insurance policy, it could be a $100,000 policy. That policy, uh, the premium of that policy is paid by the donor, and that policy can either be paid by the donor directly, or the smart thing to do is you, the organization, you hold the policy. You are the beneficiary of that policy. The donor makes a gift that is equal to the premium annually, quarterly, monthly, whatever that may be. You take that and then you provide that to the insurance company. And guess what? The donor gets to claim that premium as a gift. Now, that's not going to be a big deal in this day and age for tax purposes, but it certainly does make the donor feel good that they're not only providing this life insurance policy, but they're also able to have the premiums be a deduction for them. Now, why do this now? You need to pay attention to the demographics of your constituents. You may have an aging donor base right now. And planned giving or legacy giving conversations are usually good to begin with people who are 50 years old or older. By that time, if they have children, they're probably just getting out of college, or maybe they're in college. They can now start to think they see the light at the end of the tunnel. Their child is about to graduate and perhaps get out into the world and will be doing their own thing. And so parents will start thinking about how they want to spend the funds that they have during the rest of the time that they're here, which could and should include an opportunity to support organizations that are meaningful to them. When we are living in a time of economic uncertainty, and one could argue that we're living in that time right now, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but legacy gifts can provide long term security amidst short term volatility. So, if someone puts you in their estate, if somebody gives you a life, engages in a life estate agreement, whatever that may be, you know that those dollars are going to be able to play the long game, either through sitting your endowment, or obviously it may take time before that. As my very esteemed mentor would say, when a planned gift would come in is when the gift matures. Um, but we have to be thinking about economic uncertainty. Are there any cultural shifts that are happening within the organization? People want to be able to leave gifts in a meaningful way. They want to leave a legacy, and they want to be part of that cultural shift. And I'm not talking about necessarily socially culturally shift a cultural shift. I'm talking about a cultural shift within the organization, a philanthropic cultural shift. And hopefully that's a shift for the good, where you're starting to see more and more people engaged in supporting the organization. And having a legacy program bolsters your philanthropic culture. As you are securing these gifts and working with your donors on this, you want to make sure that you're focusing more on the education aspect of this, not so much the ask itself. The ask will come, and it should come, and it should come at the same kind of timing that it should come when you're engaged in major gift solicitation. But you have to be really careful, make sure the donor understands. Something also that is very, very important is that when you're talking with your donors about an estate gift, you are not a financial planner. You may be, who knows, you may be somebody who is, and uh, and is qualified to provide them with that kind of advice. But it would be a conflict of interest if you did. So it's always best to say to a donor, please consult your attorney or your financial advisor or both when it comes to legacy giving. This is advice to them so that they protect themselves and that you are not liable for advice that you may provide, that they could say, you are the expert and you told me to do this and I did, and it didn't quite work out. So just be mindful, of that. But finally, most importantly, normalizing legacy giving as part of an overall comprehensive fundraising strategy is really what I'm getting at here. It should be a part of what you do, regardless of where you are as an organization, regardless of what stage you're at as it relates to, where you are financially, whether you are trying to grow more, you're trying to increase revenue day to day. Don't forget about this very, very important aspect of your organization's future. I often take a page out of higher education or healthcare, two industries that I worked in directly. And that legacy giving is an integral part of organizations like that. Churches also, if they do this well, it can be an integral part of a church's philanthropic strategy. Many of the main denominations, and many of you who are watching this, are faith-based organizations, many of which I've worked with. Many of the mainline denominations have a foundation. And that foundation actually can be the foundation that not only uh, can be helpful and partner with you on educating your donors about legacy giving, but they can also be the place where your endowment is housed. So that cuts out a lot of responsibility and legwork that you have to do as an organization. And I can go on and on about how you can establish an endowment. But the important thing here is there are people who are giving to you right now, and they could be giving to you in a very small way, $500 a year, but they have the capacity to make a bigger impact as part of their legacy. So keep that in mind and seize the opportunity to talk about legacy giving, start a legacy giving program, promote the legacy giving program, focus on a certain demographic, 50 and older. And when you're meeting with donors that you are meeting with now that are major gift donors, these are also your planned gift prospects. It's the whole idea of moving donors along the continuum, increasing their gift year over year, but also moving them up along the continuum, because at some point you can begin the conversation about what a legacy gift might look like. So if you're not engaged in a legacy giving program, you've talked about it, you've thought about it, you've said we need to start it, and it just keeps getting pushed down the line because you're dealing with what's in front of you. I cannot stress enough the importance of establishing it. It doesn't take a lot. All you have to do is let your constituents know that you accept legacy gifts. And for more information, they can come and speak with you about it. There's a lot more I can talk about on this topic. I probably do a part 2 and part 3 on this, but it is very, very important to engage in this so that your organization can thrive. So I hope this has been helpful to you. If you have any questions about this, you can certainly leave a message in the comment below. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can send me an email at mark@thefundcoach.com. You can reply to the email that you get when you're notified about this podcast. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. So as always, this fundraising thing, even when it comes to play and giving, it's not about the dollars. It's about what the dollars do for the people that you serve. Thanks. And we'll see you next time.